reconfigure, not figuratively, and groove into the new age of gravity, where we all felt less dense and tense and accepted presence full-heartedly. Surrounds us is the light and the load that has kept us froze.
Machnamh, an Irish word for meditation.
Yes, meditation saved my life, I think. I remember sitting down at the end of the Beara Peninsula in a very deeply depressed state in my life and finding my first moments of expansive consciousness.
And it really just began with a simple cup of tea. I really wanted to just embody that feeling that you get when you drink a cup of tea, and I wanted to take that feeling and sort of bring it into an installation of some kind. This naturally then developed into what it is today, which is a modern meditation space that is made out of earth.
I think that spaces like these, and to be honest, permaculture design as a whole, is about meditating. It's about sitting and thinking, and like we've lost that peace that you get from meditation by dissolving into our phones, dissolving into a screen.
But throughout the process of the build was actually the most mindful, loving experience that I had.
Why I chose to build in Ballydesmond is because there's something about the land that feels quite spiritual. I've been told that it's one of the last places that the English have invaded, you know, because it was so rural, and I think there's something quite nice about that. There's something untouched there that I feel like could be tapped into.
So there have been people living on this land for a really long time. In the Bronze Age, it was one of the most populous areas of Ireland. There are the most megalithic monuments of a Bronze Age antiquity on the area of Duhallow.
So it was immersed in kind of standing stones, fairy forts, Fullock Fias, and they're all natural building that you can build a structure with what's in the area, and that's what people did for thousands of years.
Some years ago we were looking at the history of Ballydesmond, and it was built in the early 1800s as a sort of a place for the stagecoach to stop between Cork and Tralee. And they didn't know if anybody really lived in the area because there were no roads, and they put out a call, and there were people, seemingly they were quite emaciated and so forth when they came to work there, so they were delighted with the work. And many of them were living in bahans.
Bahans, which were little kind of mud dwellings, and some very poor people would have lived in those.
And we found out that some of them were living on this farm in bahans, and it's in this little sun trap down by a river with the quarry at the back, so I can see how they chose it. But rebuilding with earth this week kind of reminds me that, you know, if you go back a few generations on this farm, that there were already people building with earth on this farm.
So the process of the build was quite a unique one. I don't have a massive background in construction. However, we had to build a 6 by 6 meter hole in the ground in Ballydesmond in a place called Sliabh Luachra, where the water table is very high. However, the next day, after a month of no rain, 12 hours of heavy rain came down and the whole hole filled up with water. So after having a momentary peace, it became, how do we build this structure without it getting flooded?
The way it starts is normally with the preparation work, where you're digging a big hole, you're harvesting material that we're going to use to build the dome. One of the things that we had to do was we had to put in a French drain so that the the hole that we dug didn't just turn into a swimming pool.
Then we put quarry stone and we dug a drain out maybe about 60 feet. Then on top of that, we put another layer of geofabric and the nice stone that is already on the foundation. And we haven't seen a drop of water since.
I do like the idea of building with indigenous materials and what you have on site, and I suppose it's an interesting thing, especially where accommodation is getting so expensive. So it's sort of it struck a chord with me of kind of what I could learn here, really, you know. So yeah, it's interesting to see how maybe we can use old techniques to build maybe modern accommodations, you know.
You know, by embracing nature, that you can actually build stuff that doesn't have to cost a fortune. It performs very well, and also have great crack with your friends and meet new people.
And then from there on forward, it's just building back, following the compass. The compass is the most important part. The geometry is where the strength of these buildings is.
Yeah, so the process of natural building is a very people-orientated process. So it is like the compass in which we measured the geometry of the circle. It is a big long chain, and the strength of the structure that we build is about the geometry. Us as a group had a very strong, I think, chain.
The process was then to maybe sieve a lot of the soil, so we had to sieve 17 cubic meters of soil, you know. So that was used in, we mixed that in a mixer. So there's two people on mixing stations and just adding water. So the next process is to put that soil into bags, like tube-like bags, you know, and we're working from each end of the bag, you know. So there's one person filling and one person holding the bag and molding the bag. And so that's put down in a circular fashion, you know. And then tamped down to kind of eliminate, to bind all the material together.
And on top of that, you weave wire and add another bag on top of that one and do the same process again and again. And this would hold the structure, and as we got further up, since it's sort of a beehive shape, it would gradually go in. I would say the highlight of this whole process was actually just creating a place where people could get together and just connect.
Well, it's actually the friendship and things like that. It's nice to meet people and not to feel like that you're on your own aside in a small community.
If you work with a large group of people doing something, there's an energy in that which I feel will go into the project and stay in the project forevermore. And it kind of takes you back to the old mehels of Ireland long ago. And when I was a kid, we would have a mehel in the bog, people helping each other. It has the same kind of energy as that.
Once I finally sat inside the building when it was done, there was a real feeling of just calmness in there. I think it was the fact that there was tons of earth surrounding you.
Or to meditate so deeply in a space that's so quiet and internal, because it feels like a very internal space. It feels like you're going in to a cave. But when you step out, you can bask in the majesty of the goddess Danu.
A lot of people think, you know, how do we help nature? We don't need to help nature, we just need to stop destroying it. My favorite quote is, we worship a God you cannot see, and we destroy a nature that is all around us and that we depend on, not knowing that that is the God that we worship.
Well, I'm in nature constantly because I am nature, we are all nature, so I think everyone should realise that.
Yeah, I suppose all my ancestors from either side were always connected somewhat to the earth, so maybe there is a calling there and there's always a closeness to the earth.
I initially thought I'd have the building finished, but I've realised with the time constraints that I have that, you know, all I could do is have the structure itself up and have the detailing afterwards. This gives me an opportunity to design the structure in a 3D environment and use my media skills to give me a creative vision of what this space could look like. Building and construction can be accessible to anyone. I'm just a media student and now I have a hut.